Okay, good evening, everybody. Hope everyone's okay. Hope everyone is well. Oh, my head's a bit shiny tonight, but it is what it is. We've got plenty to discuss, and I've just cut that press conference off because I don't think anything in there is earth-shattering, worth talking about. They basically, I will just cut straight to it, effectively said that, last administration chased out a lot of digital assets companies abroad, and they want to bring that back to the United States, and so they're looking and they're excited to try and sort of get that through, and they're talking about bipartisan support and everything else. So look, it's a newly formed committee. I don't think we really should have been expecting any policies to be announced today, but this is crypto, so of course we were. Whether or not they took a leaf out of Justin Sun's book to just make an announcement of an announcement, but at least they've showed face. Something earth-shattering may come out in the questions, but I put that to one side because tonight we're going to have the usual kind of discussion about where the market is. But I spoke about something last week, which I think I just touched on. I've had some sort of DMs and some WhatsApp messages about it. So I thought, right, let's actually talk about the alt season and let's have a look at what I spoke about last week. Let's actually put it under the microscope and really try and understand, do we have an alt season? Sorry, are we going to get an alt season? Or alt season done? And if they are done, why is that the way that it is? So we're going to cover that. There's plenty of news things that we can also have a little bit of a chat about. Bitcoin update, market moves update. I mean, we've had a hell of a move over the weekend and a recovery and then a dip back down again. So plenty to go through there. It's a couple of questions, so should be a busy one. With that said, we'll dive straight in. But if you do have any questions, as always, please just put them, or comments, just put them in the chat. I will get round to them as best I can. Hello to everybody. And okay, so here's the market. And standing in a 3-day time frame on Bitcoin, what can we really say? Straight off the bat, without even zooming up, we're just in that range. We are completely and utterly in the range. So about 2 weeks ago, we hit the 110 level, or just under. And then, you know what? Yesterday, we hit the 191. Sorry, not the 191. Wow, that'd be amazing. The 91 level. And we can I drew this last week, but we'll do it again. We can kind of box up really simple lines here. This is just what we're working to. This is it. This is just the range we're in. And whilst we had something like this over the summer, yet it was more of a descending channel, we're kind of just going horizontally. This is potentially an accumulation phase before the next move. I have seen some people talk about whether or not it's a Wyckoff distribution and we might see a leg back down, but I'm not going to get into that this week. We've got plenty of other things to talk about. But we are just ranging in and around this. And that wick came down beautifully to sort of that $91,000 level. It has then shot straight back up. And it all came off the back of some of the trade and the tariffs, which we'll discuss in a moment. Going on to things like Bitcoin dominance, which I'll enlarge because my face is in the way of it. This is the pattern we've been looking at. W formation. We had the neckline. I mean, actually, last week we moved the neckline up to here, didn't we? This was the neckline we were looking at. It's broken that. Now, that wick's an interesting one. That wick came about yesterday. When the market crashed, it appeared that actually altcoins went first. And then Bitcoin dominance because of that shot up. But we've actually seen it come down. Now, we've still got a day and a half or so left on that. But that's going to be an interesting wick if that's what it stays. Yes, Bitcoin has climbed up. We are talking about the 61% level. And bearing in mind, the last time I was on the call with you lot, it was actually only at 59. So a couple of percent moves, pretty strong. But I'm going to briefly just take it down onto the, this is the hourly time frame. You can see that wick there on the hourly. On the 15 minutes, probably not as aggressive. Still, that one wick was based on the 15-minute, 5-minute then. And you can now kind of see where this forms pretty much over 2 candles. So in the space of 10 minutes, we went from 61 to 64 and back down again, which, where's it all gone? We've moved around a little bit. There we go. The reason I mention that is when we get on to talking about alt season and everything else, this candle remains as it is. I mean, it's a high test. Well, it's not a shooting star because that's the other way around. Can't think what it's called, where it's heading down. It'll come to me in a moment. But anyway, this is a candle which may signify a top and a reversal. And ultimately, we play this chart for TA just as we do any others. And so whilst it did shoot up only over a 5-minute period, the wick is there. The story has been set. So it'll be interesting to see how that one plays out. But for me right now, and this is not getting into the narrative about where we are with an alt season, is Bitcoin dominance is on an uptrend. And we just got to continue that. Just a second, my dog's just come in. Even the dog wants to know how Bitcoin's doing. So yes, we've got it just trending back up. We've had that fall back down, but that double bottom has played out. It's just looking like a nice bottoming pattern and a reset. And for me, we'll see how this candle closes, but I'm not necessarily ignoring it. I want to see how the next 2-3 day candles play out. If we start to see a drop, I think it's going to have some credibility. Otherwise, I think we're just going to track back up. And you'll see when I have a look at my portfolio a little bit later on, I have started to adjust it a little bit. I have made some BTC purchases within the personal portfolio, just to short term try and take advantage of any increase within the Bitcoin dominance. And then total market cap, well, this is total 3. It's kind of showing exactly the same picture. What I would say, and we're going to look at total 3 in a bit more detail later on, but this kind of neckline, this was on the candle closes here. The wick's a little bit further down where we're currently sitting at the moment at 900 billion. We've shot all the way down to 750 billion. We've climbed back up, but what I would say is we are currently below this. Okay, so looks like it's a double top. We're trying to make that recovery back. It is a nice looking wick back up, but we haven't been able to close above it yet. For me, just to try and confirm whether or not at least altcoins are going to get that sort of momentum and their mojo back, I want to see that close above. And then Tau, obviously close to all of our hearts. And we will go into a lot of detail with where Tau is, my thoughts on it. Not really going to talk about detail from a fundamental point of view. We can have a look at that, where that will go. But we're still in the downtrend, and that's the key. We've talked about it on the 3-day time frame. We had a beautiful uptrend through the winter months, peaked in December, turned into a downtrend, and this candle here, it did close lower than the previous. So we are still, following this narrative all the way back down. You can even add that one in if you want. And we're here. So maybe we get a move back up, but 450 kind of region. We'll have a look at that a little bit later on. And so it needs to do some impressive things for me to really kind of change my feeling on where this is going. I am back in and back out of Tau. So I have been over the last 24 hours. We'll talk about where that goes because there is some other kind of thoughts in my mind with that. I'll save that for later on. But the downtrend for me still continues. And even if we do form a higher high off this, we've still got to then actually break this trend line. And that trend line, it goes all the way back, as you know, last year and a half. But even in the last few months, weeks, it's played a crucial part. Let me get rid of these. It really has played a crucial part here in terms of sort of like fighting that. And on the odd occasion, it's closed above it, but generally it has acted as resistance since we lost it at the beginning of the year. So another big battleground to be had there, probably in and around the 470, 475 region. Depends on how many candles it's going to take us to get in that position. Right. I always do that. Let's just move that back and mess on. Let's just have a quick run through. I've seen some comments. I'm going to route through the news as quick as I can. We'll have a look at some of the comments. We'll get into some of the TA and everything. And we talk about it every week, so it's only fair that I mention this. Normally, MicroStrategy has been buying, but actually this week they've announced that they're not buying. So this ends a 12 weeks consecutive streak of them effectively selling shares so they can buy Bitcoin. Michael Saylor has decided that is not the appropriate decision to make this week. There's no real explanation as to why. A couple of things that do spring to my mind. It's their earnings report tomorrow. So they probably are just, easing springs and want to try and understand what the sentiment is and also take stock of actually how they've done this quarter, or technically last quarter. As we've kind of said, the selling of the shares whilst kind of creates an infinite money glitch for them in terms of being able to buy it from an actual investment point of view. Not necessarily the best. That's kind of been reflected in the share price. It has been dropping quite significantly. If we just bring up the share price, let me just find a chart, MicroStrategy. It peaked just around the election time sort of 540, and now we're kind of floating in around about 350. So it has had a hell of a drop. I appreciate Bitcoin has ranged in that, but Bitcoin's got back up to the highs while MicroStrategy hasn't really done that. So, some interesting questions I'm sure will come out of the earnings call tomorrow, and we'll see where that is. Let's put that back on Bitcoin so I don't forget. Squeeze that so we know what we're doing. I know that Simon did a video on this today, but I got my charts ready anyway, so I'm not really going to hedge on this. But we had a significant liquidation event yesterday. Originally reported at around about $2.25 billion worth of liquidations off the back of some rumors that came about with it. With not even rumors. President Trump on Friday announced tariffs to Mexico, Canada, and China, which would effectively go into effect this week. Market did not like that. Crypto obviously being open 24/7, reacted first over the weekend, and then initially the Asia market didn't like the outcome of that Sunday night, Monday morning. But then before we even opened the US markets, a deal had been struck with Mexico. A few hours later, a deal had been struck with Canada. China tried to play a little bit of hardball today in setting out their own 15% tariffs on coal, and I can't remember what else, gas, I think. But now there's rumors that there's going to be a phone call between Trump and China. So kind of a bit of chess versus checkers in terms of what President Trump was doing versus what the retail like ourselves were doing in the market. But it did cause a big correction to occur. And then funnily enough, we saw the recovery. So not only did all the longs get taken out with the drop, everyone then went short and all the shorts got taken out. Now, what is interesting is it wasn't 2.24 billion. It actually was closer to somewhere between 8 to 10 billion. How do we know this? Well, the Bybit founder, Ben Zhu, he sort of went onto Twitter. This is the tweet here. And he sort of said, actually, real total liquidations from them are a lot more than, in the overall market are more than 2 billion. By my estimation, 8 to 10 billion. Bybit's 24-hour liquidations alone were 2.1 billion. And while CoinGlass were only saying it was 333 million, but as Simon pointed out in his video, they have an API limitation about how much data can be pushed out per second. He's aware that other exchanges have the same. So the data they were receiving was not quite accurate. It is what it is. But the point being that actually in a single day, the market wiped out more than we lost in FTX liquidations, Celsius liquidations, and Luna liquidations, which is it's quite impressive when you add those all together. What amazes me, and I've not bothered to really look into it, is that there was over 10 billion in longs and shorts for it to be lost. But as we've talked about repeatedly on this market, it's why we look at the heat maps. Market makers need to make their bank, and ultimately they had a luxury of being able to take that into both directions. And I'm not going to go into market maker theory here, because it'll just take too long. But they can push the market in the way that they need. They can hold longs and shorts open for as long as they need, because they're providing the liquidity to that. But ultimately, they don't want to leave them open too long if they can, because they want to just be recycling it. They don't care if Bitcoin goes to 200K. They just want the volatility of it moving in and around. And the last 6 weeks have been incredibly volatile. Feels like a washing machine in terms of just ups and downs, which is the perfect opportunity for market makers. They saw a bit too much greed and they decided to take advantage of it. That's Ben's tweet there as well. Let's just get rid of these as we're doing it. So many tabs opening. And we talked about the tariffs. I think that's kind of where that is. Whether or not President Trump was ever serious about those, or he just wanted to use it as a political yardstick or stick generally to get what he wanted, we'll have to wait and see. What I did find interesting with Canada, and this is the gamesmanship, I didn't bother bringing it up, but actually, with the exception of the fentanyl element of what Canada announced, there was over $1 billion that had been promised to reinforce the border back in October or November anyway. So this was stuff that was already happening, but you know what? Let's just spin it. That wasn't under President Trump. Let's spin it now that it is under President Trump. He's actually even got Justin Trudeau to announce that it was because of a phone call he had. But, 9 weeks ago or whatever, he had actually already made some promises there. So I think President Trump is just looking to score some victories. He said he's going to put America first. And he's looking like he's playing a bit of Russian roulette with trade wars. But so far, he hasn't had to blink. Let's close that one. And then we've had President Trump sign another executive order. This one is to create a sovereign wealth fund for the United States, different to the Digital Strategic Reserve. The sovereign wealth fund could actually include a significant amount of assets within it, but there is suggestions actually, because of what Senator Lumens is saying, is that actually they could also include Bitcoin within that one. So we'll see. I mentioned this, or I had this one today, in case anything important came out of the Digital Strategic Reserve press conference, which it didn't. So we won't we'll skirt over it. So we won't deal with it too much. And then a little bit of news that, I think has flown under the radar, but FTX, the first creditor payments are actually going to come out this month. So 2 weeks from today, anyone that's due over $50,000 will start to get their payouts. Now, it's $16 billion worth, which, is not a drop in the ocean. Let's be certain of that. It's not something to be sniffed at, but it probably is a drop in the ocean in the overall market. That being said, it's just how these creditors are going to deal with it. A lot of them going to be burned and decide they just don't want to be involved in crypto anymore. A lot of them going to be bitter because if they'd had their Bitcoin back in 2022 to where it is now, they'd already made a 6x. Does that mean that they're going to put it into altcoins because they want to try and recover what they've already lost? We don't necessarily know, but from the 18th of Feb, what we do know is $16 billion worth of funds is going to be unlocked. How much of that ends up back in the crypto space? I would say a fair amount. These are, generally, when we talk about people with over $50,000 worth, they're probably people who understood crypto, not sort of the guys that just fired it up on a whim. And I think they'll have sort of been watching how the market is done, understand market cycles and think that actually there is still an opportunity for them to make some money because we should have some time left within the market. Again, wait and see. But 18th of February for your diaries there. And then what's this final one? Bitcoin dominance. Yep. So we're going to get talking about that later. I'll come back to that news article. The final bit of news, again, I think this one slipped under the radar, but for us in the UK, Coinbase enters the UK markets and it secures an FCA approval to offer crypto services in the UK to both retail and institutional investments. I read this article today and I immediately actually fired up the old Coinbase account, not been on it in 5 years. Decided to update my KYC so they didn't close my account in 2 weeks' time, just in case we need to use it. A lot of us have issues on ramping, and I'm not saying that it's solved as of today. Coinbase have made the first real move, for me anyway, in actually legitimizing, a crypto exchange within the United Kingdom that I think there should, hopefully will have a knock-on effect with sort of, banks in terms of like freeing up money, not having to go through a fraud team every time. I'm sure the banks will still put restrictions on how much we can move every single day, week, whatever it's going to be. But it's a nice step that we're going that way. So again, announced today, completely under the radar, but I think it's definitely worth looking into or just keeping an eye on as we go forward. Right, that's the news. I told you we'd get through it quickly. Less than 18 minutes. See if there's anything here. Before each capitulation, BTCD has had a spike up. If you look at previous cycles, we're going to have a look at previous cycles. So, I will ring fence that to have a look at. I thought that was an important thing to remember. I totally agree. Even the dog wants to hear about BTC. Trust me, Sky that's my dog's name. She sat in the room most of the time I'm staring at the chart. So she hears me cursing and praising crypto pretty much every day. No option for pump fund season on the poll. We are going to talk about what pump fund has done to this. So no, you're right. AI cryptos are in the toilet right now, really taking a bettering. I think you mean beating. Maybe the narrative is dying. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that's something probably worth talking about. I'll have this chart up. Why not? I don't think AI cryptos are dying. I think there's definitely some AI cryptos in there that are still, treading water. The whole of the alt market is generally dying. There are a couple of sectors or a couple of projects within sectors that are doing well, but you can see on the altcoin season index, 49, we're smack bang in the middle. We'll look at the fear and greed index in a moment. we're pretty low on the fear and greed index as well. So just altcoins are not having their time in the sun. And yeah, we're going to talk later on whether or not they'll get their time in the sun. But I don't think it's just restricted to AI cryptos. I think a lot have taken it. Tau is taking a bit of a beating. I know Virtuals has, argue whether or not that is actually an AI project or just an exchange to buy AI meme coins effectively. But we'll cover onto that later on. Even with Trump signing AI legislation, so he's signing executive orders. Everything's got to go through the system. I think we've got to realize Trump's actually only been inaugurated for 2 weeks. So to call him out on either being crypto positive or crypto negative at the moment, I think it is a little too early. There is, unfortunately, I know a lot of people think he is acting like a dictator, and it's easy for him to make these sweeping statements to the press, and it should be easy for him to get it through the House and the Congress and all the Senate or whatever it is, because of the Republicans' overall domination of the amount of seats. Whatever, let's not get down the political side. But it does take time to get through those. So yes, he has signed executive orders. A lot of working groups are in action, but they then need to be put to Congress and approved on. So we'll see where they end up going. We're running out of money from the infinite money glitch. Yep, I think that's true. I saw someone, Flint coin. Okay, I'll have a look at Flint coin a little bit later on. Please remind me if I don't. But let's just have a look at Bitcoin, where it's at the moment. So yeah, 20 minutes ago, we were at nearly 101,000. The market hasn't really liked what it's heard. Surprise. If you didn't watch it, don't worry. It was an absolute nothing burger. So let's just put that to the bench. Right, okay, fine. What do we actually see? So obviously we have an element of long liquidations. So short liquidations. The main block at the moment, 107,000 to 110,000. Wasn't touched over the weekend. What was touched over the weekend was the one I've turned grey down here, 97,750 to 95,000. And just look where the candles ended up closing. Yeah, okay, we wicked through, and I accept that. And there will be other levels on a smaller time scale that would have cleared that. But just on this, I don't, move this around or anything. But this, it absolutely, closed all the way back through there and then sort of rode it back up. But even the wick down to the fib levels again on the 1618 and turning it back around there. So pretty strong sort of level. And when I decided to get back into Tau, looking at charts like this, looking at fib levels and EMAs and all of that, and Bitcoin, and then across the wider market, it just made sense to head back in. We'll talk about Tau levels in a moment. Mr. Taco's, that announcement was painful to watch. It was, yeah. But what we can now see, even on the 12-hour chart here, we've climbed back up. We've climbed back up into this area here. No fibs on this, just previous price action. A lot of body closes, a lot of wicks in and around there, a lot of support acting as resistance now. And we've cleanly rejected off it. And this kind of does feel to me anyway like a dead cat bounce. So I talked yesterday on Discord wanting to see a V-shaped recovery on Tau and on Bitcoin. And we started to see that, but there were EMAs that were in the way, which we're going to have a look at. And we never really cleared past some of those. Rejecting off those and moving back down, for me at the moment at least, gives the impression that it is a dead cat bounce and that perhaps we've got another level to head back down to. And so that's kind of how I'm positioning myself at the moment in terms of where I think the market could go. I do think, okay, there's no real liquidity that's built up in and around here on a significant level because we only flushed it out yesterday. So yeah, that 94 level on Bitcoin, I will go on to lower timeframes in a moment, don't worry, is there. But for me, the Gandalf level has worked very well in the past. That 91,000, that 91,600, 91,500, I think it is there. That level, when you do it on the daily, it looks pretty good in terms of, how many times we've come in and around that. Perhaps should have done it as a rectangle. And that's just going to be confusing because of the other rectangles. But you get the point there. For the 5 more seconds with this chart's open, I'll turn that line blue. And that's sort of the next kind of area that I'm thinking we're probably going to see some battle down there. Another opportunity to sweep that low. Let's go on to some lower time frames on this at the moment. Wow, 1 hour chart. Let's go on the 4 hour. What potential? Sorry, let's get rid of these. I'll tell you what. just drawings, there we go. Potentially then what we could be seeing is some form of W formation. So this is what I was talking about. We had that drop back down. I mentioned I wanted to see a V-shaped reversal to come back up, and I really wanted it to this Bitcoin one about here to sort of come back up to this level here. Certainly take out this vector candle zone up here. And so we talked Tau and Bitcoin looking very similar. We had the 10 and the 20 EMAs in our way. We did actually break through those. We got to the 50 EMA, and to be honest, we all look, what's happened there? It all looked good. However, that's why I have the cloud on, because we got to the cloud and it just was a turnaround point, okay? And it was just a clean rejection from that. So we've rejected back down. We've tried another attempt to get through it. We've wicked up to the 50 EMA again. Granted, that was last hour, less than that, but it's been another rejection. And so what we have, minimum wise, is this, 4-hour candle, that vector candle there, recovery back. Whether or not we get it down to the very bottom of it, or it's just the midway point, it doesn't necessarily matter, because I think from a bullish point of view, short-term bullish point of view, what I'd like to see, I'm gonna have to get rid of these now, just because I don't want to confuse anyone, is potentially then, is there takedown there, even if it's down to this, an opportunity for a W formation? That move down to 95, getting close to that 94,800 was that fib level we talked about in the previous chart. Getting back down there, taking it. And if we can't take that, then what we've got another liquidity level down here, which is actually off this low back from the 13th of January, which is still standing. And I effectively, by the time we get down there, and this is a sharp drop, I'm imagining that this 800 EMA is going to get sort of the 90,000 level. And could give us that opportunity. I appreciate I said 91. As we get on the lower time frames, sometimes that actually is going to slip a little bit lower. 91 is more of a 12-hour daily kind of level. We may see those wicks through, but that's potentially what we could see. I mean, ultimately, if we do break 94, the W formation is not really going to be working there, because what we want to see for the recovery of the W formation is the right-hand side slightly higher. That's what I prefer to see. For the move up, that one gets lower, and maybe it's just a continuation back down. Unfortunately, it's only time to tell, and we just got to play it. But going back to that original picture there, we're just in the range. We're just in this range, and until we actually break that 91,000, we've just got to expect that the movements between 91 and 108,000 are to be expected, and there's plenty of opportunity to take with that. Granted, the worst trade I did last year or year before, can't remember now, it was that long ago, was the Link one, where something similar was happening between $5 and $9. And I thought, right, we're at $9, I'm going to sell, which I did. And then it shot up to $20 or what have you. So, of course, it's going to break at some time. We can only play the probabilities. But that's why you wait for a clean rejection. You don't do what I did in that one instance and sell as soon as it hit there. Wait for that clean rejection. But this at the moment is ranging out. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. In the grand scheme of things, a bit like what we had over the summer, painful to deal with, but ultimately, what do we want to see to really move the market going up? We want to see reduction in interest rates. We want to see QE. Well, we're not there yet. So if Bitcoin can hold its own in around 90 to 110,000 whilst we're waiting for that, it's an incredible amount of strength that it's actually providing to give us that leg up. So, until we break that Gandalf level, let's say, or we create a new all-time high, I just think we're going to have to expect and respect the fact that we're going to be stuck in this pattern. And it's not necessarily something to be afraid of. The only thing that we have seen in that, and Ethereum is a great example for us. I think Bijan put something in Discord. Let me see if I can do this. New price scale. Maybe. So basically, every time Bitcoin has broke, here we can do it. So Bitcoin obviously is this. So it breaks 100K. This might take a bit of time. I should have prepped it beforehand. Ethereum was 3,900. Yeah, you can see where I'm going with this. Breaks 100K again. Ethereum was, basically a little bit higher. Subsequently, breaks it again, Ethereum's now dropped. Breaks 100k again, which is this level. Ethereum, you get it, has dropped. Obviously, it stays above 100k. Next time it goes above 100k is here. Sorry if this is getting a little boring now, but you kind of get the point. It's there. And then we break 100k again today. And where's Ethereum? It's down here. And this is representative of the entire altcoin market. And it doesn't mean we're not going to get an alt season. We'll get onto that in a moment. But what we're just seeing is the strength of Bitcoin. So it's able to hold its own in and around that 100k level. But the vast majority, and not all, but the vast majority of altcoins, Ethereum, BitTensor, Near, Render, they've struggled each time Bitcoin's managed to regain its position. Unfortunately, it's the altcoin market has lost it, and I think that's a good visualization of the battle we're currently having with altcoins. I will come back to Bitcoin in a moment. Total. So this is total market cap, and this is representative, isn't it? It looks very similar to the Bitcoin market cap because the vast majority of it, 60%, is within there. And we've had this range. Now, what's this blue line? This blue line's different. It's not just signifying where this has dipped down to. This blue line's here before that. This blue line is actually the previous cycle high. So when we talk about previous price actions, normally on just assets rather than the overall market, always think of those as points of support. And that previous cycle high has actually acted, not once, twice, 3 times. Okay, we lost it, but it came back up 4 times. I put that on the 12 hour. I'm sure it's going to look better. 4 times as support. So that 3.2 trillion has done quite well in the past. So again, from a total market cap point of view, that 3 trillion mark is where I'm seeing the Gandalf line again. We lose that, and we start making lower lows, lower highs underneath that. Altcoins are going to bleed hard, but also Bitcoin's going to probably bleed too. Vision, what you put in. Only 3 of the top 50 alts made new all-time highs versus 2021. XRP, Tron, and Leo. Okay, I'm surprised Solana's not on that. Yeah, Solana is, isn't it? Solana was 260 and it got to just under 300. I get your point though, not many. Yeah, okay. What chart was I just on? Total, wasn't it? If I can find it. There we go. But with total market cap, new all-time highs, has Solana pump and stolen some of the market liquidity? I'm going to talk about pump in a moment, and I think the answer might surprise you on that one. Matter of fact, let's make sure that we're not in a bear market. So let's just canary in the coal mine. Okay, there was some selling, which happens all the time. Yesterday, Fidelity, Bitwise, and ARK and Van Eyck all sold, but BlackRock didn't. So my canary in it didn't buy anything, which is odd in itself, but it didn't sell. So fact of the matter is, their advisors and their clientele, they're not necessarily worried about Bitcoin at the moment. Happy to hold on to it. And these boys are the largest ETF holders of Bitcoin. So for now, that's fine. I wasn't expecting us to wake up yesterday in a bear market. That being said, now this is the alternative.me Fear and Greed Index. So today's value now, which is based on yesterday's data, is at 72. The day before that, so yesterday's, Monday, based on Sunday's data, 44. I mean, the swings that we get in this market at the moment, the level of emotion is incredibly wild. And it does make me wonder, actually, is there more retail? This is kind of leading on to where we're going to go in a moment. Is there more retail in the market than we expect? That we can go from almost extreme greed to fear within one movement. Weekend as well. Bear in mind, price action on the weekend, very difficult to really say that it's anything other than than retail. Bear in mind, most institutional firms are closed. So yeah, we're seeing those swaves. It'll be interesting to see how tomorrow plays out, because the vast majority of tokens are in the red today. Granted, I don't have a full list there, but Excuse me, I just struggling to not cough. But yeah, that's what it is. Now, if you go to CoinMarketCap and they update their fear and greed index, on the more hourly, I think it's like every 6 hours or so. So where are we? Okay, so it's just on the daily. Apologies. So yesterday it was 39. Today's 45. So it's been more susceptible. Like whereas this one here was at 72 last week. Last week we were at 54 here. So CoinMarketCap is registering that actually we have been in a neutral area for much longer. We haven't actually experienced any greed since the 26th, which was not quite a week ago today, last weekend. Anyway, so that's where we are with that. We've gone over alt season. We've had a look at levels. I'll come back to the questions. Let's address the alt season thing. When I can find it. Here it is. Okay, so last week, very quickly, I went over this tweet, which is there are 36.4 million crypto tokens today and on pace to have 100 million by the end of 2025. To put that in perspective, 2018 had 3,000, 2013 had 500. And I think I sort of alluded to 2021 had in the region of, say, 100,000. I think it was a little bit more. And so the point being made that a rising tide is not going to lift all ships this time. And just to think that you can throw a dart at absolutely anything and you're going to make a minimum of a 5x is probably not an accurate way to be looking at the market this time. And I feel like I went over it quite quickly. I said I'd continue to look at it. And just because I talk about something on a call doesn't mean that I then instantly forget about it. And so this week, I just wanted to have a look a little bit more. But it's interesting sentiment, as I say, very retail driven, the sentiment, because, I just picked a few. Alexandro, BTC, unpopular opinion, alt season. So this came off the back of that tweet as well, which I didn't really get into, but alt season will never come again. There's too many altcoins. There's not enough money to pump everything. Miles Deutscher had said, will there be an alt season again? I mean, it's a long one here. He says, yes, there will be an alt season, but in terms of a month-to-month only up mania, 2021 style, then no. So he doesn't, necessarily believe that. We have Murad, who sort of said, will there be an alt season? Not in 2025. The industry has changed permanently. Again, due to just the amount of tokens that are coming in, new coin produced per day. Ash in Crypto kind of sort of suggested exactly the same off of that. And these are just a few sort of picked out at random. And on the face of that, there is something to be worried about, because you go on to CoinMarketCap and this in the very left hand side, it's got cryptos and how many that CoinMarketCap is registering. 10.74 plus million. Now, 18 months ago, that was 2.2 million. Even then, that seemed ridiculously high. We've got talks of 36 million. So where's the disparity? You want to see disparity. CoinGecko actually only recognized 17,000 tokens. So there's a cutoff somewhere where, yes, we know on average 20,000 projects tokens are being made each day, mainly because of pump fund. The vast majority of them are meme coins. So where does the line get cut off between what we actually have, which are genuine, whether or not you like them or not, crypto projects, which are, supposed to serve a purpose, have a team or had a team, because I'm sure a lot of them are defunct doing its job, versus someone just locked in their bedroom deciding, I've completed certain other websites. It's so easy to make a meme coin. I'll just make one. Whether or not they ever, seriously launch it or just put it into the ether and then forget about it, these things are getting made time on time again. And so, realistically, I mean, I don't really look anything beyond maybe page 3, but my portfolio is pretty much page 1. There are some exceptions. But when you look at this stat here and say 36.4 million, how many of those are just from pump fund? And I couldn't find the data to hand. I'm sure there is somewhere that can suggest that data. So I think, because I kind of went down, rising tide of not lift all ships. There's too many projects within there. But I think when you actually think about realistic projects akin to where we were in 2021, I think that number is far lower. And I'm not saying it's CoinGecko's at 17,000. I'm certainly not suggesting that it's 10 million. It's probably somewhere in between. And I think when you get to CoinGecko, look, it's only 109 pages. 100 times 100 is 10,000. So they're only, could have done 10,800 tokens. That's all they're seeing is 10,800 tokens, despite the 10 million they've got there, 17,000. So actually, when we look at it, maybe it's not so much that we need to worry about. And one of the guys that I follow and I watch on YouTube, I've spoken about him at Cuddles, I've spoken about him on this call before, Nobius Crypto. He put out a video this week which kind of exactly went on to sort of whether or not alt season is dead. And he's got an interesting spreadsheet, which I won't put in the groups. It's in spreadsheet. It's a couple of weeks out of date on purpose, but it's actually quite interesting to just break down sort of where the wealth distribution is across and the amount of tokens. And as I say, the figures are slightly wrong, but it'll just give you a feeling. And I touched on this last week. You know, the top 10. So what you see, total market cap, he's got it at 3.4. We know it's about 3.1 at the moment. Stable coins about 210. I think it's a little bit higher than that right now. Total coins in existence, they say 33,000. Active coins, he's taken that from CoinMarketCap, is 10,800. Okay, let's go into it. So the top 10 tokens has a dominance of 85%, nearly 3 trillion. So bear in mind that remainder 10,870 only have 15 to go with. Top 100, if you now include the top 10 as well, it's 93%. So they got 3.1 trillion. 200, you get where this is going. You can see the figures as we're scrolling down through this. But you get to sort of the top 1,000. The top 1,000 take 96.3%. So whatever is left from 1,001 to whether or not you want to go 36 million or not, only has 3.5%. And so it's all now actually thinking about, when we get to alt season, thinking about distribution of wealth, because it used to be in previous cycles, 2017, probably the last example, maybe to a certain extent 2021, that when the funds left, or you know, when people sold Bitcoin to move into altcoins, large altcoins, and then down, there was, yes, obviously some moved a little bit better than others, but generally as a whole, that spread and that distribution across top 10, 100, 20, 200, whatever, would sort of float relatively evenly, spread out across, because, you know, people were hyped about fewer projects that were around, so there's more eyeballs on it. Whereas now, the reality is that people aren't going to be scrolling for page 3,000 to actually find out what the 3 millionth token is, or page 30,000, whatever. You know, that's not where it's going to go. You even need to be within this remit of you know, finding that funds. And I appreciate there will always be a meme coin play. That has been a thing for this cycle. So there may well be another Trump coin that gets launched that suddenly sucks up a lot of liquidity. Completely understand that. But generally speaking, actually, we're probably going to see a very similar impact. Maybe we don't get 20x's, 50x's, maybe 5x's where we have to learn to respect our altcoin goes. But that distribution, whatever either additional liquidity is brought in, or we get from people selling their Bitcoin, which is another conversation to have, it's just going to be spread across. I mean, I would argue the top 500, but you know, the argument here is the top 1,000 of where those tokens go. And there's a calculator here. So let's just say we do get to 10 trillion. So at the moment we're at 3.4. Actually, no, we're at 3.1. So we've got 10 trillion here. So at the moment, that would have the top 10 having 85% of that, which is 8.5 trillion. And then we have a look at sort of how that could be split down and split across from going there. And you can just see sort of the market caps, how much they move. So the top 100 used to have a market cap of 272. Well, if the top 10 still maintain that 85% dominance, actually the market cap of the top 100 is only going to go up to 800 billion. So there's only really a 4x there. Obviously, we know there's going to be swings and roundabouts within it. And that kind of filters through. And this really opened my eyes to many, you know, in terms of, I talked about maybe there isn't an alt season on the horizon. And that kind of sort of fed into me. But the more I've looked into data like this, the more I've sort of like thought about it, I think we are going to see that alt season. I think the biggest worry for me is not really about whether or not Pump Pump's going to produce a significant new token that sucks up liquidity. For me, it's oh no, not here. Let's find page one again. For me, it's Bitcoin, and I just wonder how much Bitcoin is going to be sold and moved into other alts, you know. And I'm not just talking about the ETFs, although you know they're holding a decent amount there. I'm talking about, you know, the average Joe that in his back pocket has managed to accumulate over 7 years of being in the market or whatever, a Bitcoin or two that's now worth over 100,000, not today, knowing that sovereignties are buying up Bitcoin, knowing that the US wants to do it, knowing that companies are buying it and taking the MicroStrategy approach, and they're just thinking, actually, is my Bitcoin too valuable? I want to keep that, and I'd rather find funds from somewhere else to try and scratch that itch in the altcoin game. And so we suddenly don't get as much of that flow, that cascade away from Bitcoin. And so the Bitcoin dominance doesn't drop to 40%. It stays 50s, high 50s, wherever. And so what we don't see, we just don't see that effect falling down within there. And I think that's something that we've got to just be ready for and take into account, because I think it definitely can happen. Is there anything on this one? I don't think there was. But if we do have a look at dominance, and I can't remember who mentioned it, I'll have to go back. It was Jared, wasn't it? Jared sort of talked about it. So this looks a bit confusing because there's three things on here at the moment. So what we've got in the candlesticks is Bitcoin dominance. Then we've got, let me just change one of these colors, a bit too similar. Just trying to find a color that doesn't look horrific. No, maybe yellow. Okay, and then in yellow we've got total 2, so that is Ethereum and all altcoins. And then I'll hide it for now, but we'll come back to it. It's others. So that's everything outside of the top 10. So that remained of 15%. Why have I brought this up? Because previous cycles, at time talked about this. You know, 35 weeks after halvening, we normally see the alt season commence. We're now, I think this is commencement of week 40. We're not quite there yet, but you see, what we've seen in the past is when Bitcoin suddenly starts to, you know, Bitcoin accumulates and falls off a cliff, and it really does. And it does happen swift. And that's kind of what I'm wanting to show here is it may not have happened yet, but it does happen. And when it does, it absolutely moves. Now, for those of you that were around in sort of the summer of 2020, you know, when we were locked in our houses and couldn't do anything, you know, Bitcoin went off, you know, 7,000 to 20,000 to 40,000. Absolutely no time, and altcoins were left behind. But then suddenly we got to the new year, we got to about February time, and altcoins decided that actually it's our time to shine. And whilst Bitcoin price still went up, altcoins absolutely flew. And what we've seen at the moment is, you know, I mean, bear in mind we're at 60%. You know, the last cycle in which we went from 3,000 to 69,000, you know, one stage Bitcoin dominance was at 73%, and then we sort of turn it around. And so there's nothing necessarily strange about what we're experiencing here. We just haven't had as many dips. 2019, we had a mini alt season. I mean, I know Bitcoin got to about 14 grand, but altcoins flew as well, which gave us this sort of little correction pattern. It's gonna be the same color here. We haven't had that this time. We've just had Bitcoin rising because the ETFs have taken a lot more of the narrative. But now let's try and have a look at a couple of similarities here, because firstly, I know it's not as pronounced, but we talked about this wick here and what that wick could symbolize. So if we're going to go on old cycles, we are overdue an alt season. We're 5 weeks in past where we thought it was going to be compared to the last two cycles. But what we did see is, as Jared mentioned, is a spike up in Bitcoin dominance. And then alt seasons took over. So that's what happened in 2020, 2021. We've seen this now, and that's why I want to see what the next few candles do. Because if Bitcoin dominance continues to climb, that's null and void. But if we start to get some red candles here, and we start moving that way, hey, maybe it's time. But the other thing to bear in mind is, even if you go back to 2017, 2017, what did we see? We saw Bitcoin dominance drop. It's hard to see, I know, because of the scaling. But we saw Bitcoin dominance drop and then pull back. Okay, so alt season had a little run and then pulled back. I'm going to have to change this color. It's too hard next to the yellow. I'll tell you what I should do. Let's just hide that. Don't need it right now. What do we see here? So in that November period again, we saw altcoins have a little rally. We know that because Bitcoin dominance dropped and then Bitcoin took over and then it corrected. What do we see here? Exactly the same. So Bitcoin obviously dominance. Altcoins had a little rally. Bitcoin went, no. I still got a little bit of a play in this. And then it dropped away. So we could well be close to that. And I'm not necessarily trying to rule that out. I think, you know, we ignore an alt season at our peril. I mean, the vast majority of us here have an altcoin based portfolio. Some of us may hold a little bit of Bitcoin, but we're not Bitcoin maxis. We want that alt season. And yes, it feels difficult because, you know, there's been a lot of talk about Bitcoin strategic reserves. There's a lot of talk about ETFs and what that's doing. Ethereum ETF is not really shining. Ethereum in general is not really going how it's done in previous cycles, which is a bit of a kicker because Ethereum is normally the one that kickstarts the alt season. Maybe there's an opportunity for that. I mean, if Eric Trump has his way, publicly announcing that we should all buy Ethereum, then maybe that's what we need the catalyst to do it. But it hasn't really done much today, and yeah, been very disappointing. But I think we just need to respect that it's not going to be exactly the same every single time. They just rhyme. Okay, so we just need to wait and just see what happens. And as I say, if we don't see Bitcoin dominance start to drop and it continues to climb for the next few candles, bear in mind these are actually 2 weekly candles, by the way. Then yeah, we may have sort of a problem that we've got to address and deal with. But on the poll, I think the options were face melting like before, yes, but not face melting, no, and unsure. And for me, I think we will get an alt season. I don't think it will be as face melting. I think people want to hold on to their Bitcoin more than just transition that into something else. And so, 10x I think is what we've got to shoot to the stars for. We're going to see some that do fantastic. And if you get into something early, there's been plenty, SPX, 11,000% since its inception. Tau's been fantastic since its inception. I know it's not done great now. Solana was $8 at one stage, 207 now at 300, not before. There is still plenty of ones that we could have taken advantage of that may still rise to the top. But generally, I think the altcoin market, we're going to just sort of have to settle for, realign our expectations. I don't think the 20 to 30 X's on every single token is realistic. And so without having to go into it in too much detail, it's about choosing the right narratives and the right projects within those narratives. I still think AI has a play. I still think what BitTensor can offer, especially with DeepSeek, and we haven't talked about that, but it putting on the map about decentralized AI, it's exactly what BitTensor is, I think can really help when the market starts to wake up and some realizations there. I have some reservations about how confusing DTAO and BitTensor is, and you go from 64 subnets to 1,000 subnets. Maybe we get just too complicated, but that's just a worry for another time. I've been impressed with real world assets. I really thought that was going to be something that picked up in the next cycle, but Ondo has shown some real strength. I mean, today it's just green, unlike many others, but it's shown strength just throughout the day. So impressed with how that one has gone. Obviously there's some meme coin plays there, and then there's Bitcoin, but just find whichever narrative you think is going to be it, but make sure you're getting the right projects within there. That scattergun approach of having 90 tokens, I just don't think is going to work. I have been a little vocal about that for a few months now. But we've still got an opportunity because of, can't find it now, us living in this range to have a look at our portfolios and think, is it right? Are we where we want to be? Because we're still ranging at the moment. Okay, I think I've talked enough about altcoins. Probably talked it to death then. We just want to have a look at some charts. Let's just make sure I haven't missed anything. Bijan's on it, thanks. There's a chart showing pump fun, I think. Increasing liquidity in the top 125 crypto projects lose in market share. I posted it on trading and charting in Discord. Okay, let's have a. I've not even opened Discord. Oh, you must have posted it some time ago. I won't bring it up now, but I mean, yeah, you know, pump fund of the millions that have been created is obviously going to produce some winners. And we saw Trump coin stole a lot of liquidity out of the market. Maybe alt season becomes AI season. I think AI is a strong narrative, this sector. We've seen projects kind of rebrand themselves a little bit AI-ish. I swear, maybe I misunderstood what NEAR was back at the beginning, but when I started buying this thing in 2020, end of 2022, beginning of 2023, I don't remember it being AI. But that's certainly how it's been rebranded. Maybe I misunderstood something there. Bijan's put near render tau virtuals have all lost market share in the last couple of months. Well, we're going to talk about that, but yeah. So you don't buy that theory? Okay, that's fair enough. Dino tokens like XRP, Tron, ADA, HBAR have actually fared better. Yep, they have. And again, you know, I agree with that. Quiet before the storm. How violent that storm is, I think, is the real question. I think we may, depending on how you plan on exiting or transitioning or whatever, you know, if it's a percentage gain target, we may not see that. So it's, you know, it's just understanding what the weather pattern is going to be. I think we'll leave that analogy as it is. Can't fight the trend, just higher highs with Bitcoin dominance. That's right. At the moment, why fight the trend? And we're going to talk about the trends of other things later on. But at the moment, this is just climbing. And so until this seriously breaks, why fight it? And now, realistically, I mean, it got to drop to like 57, hasn't it, below this? And you could argue, even if it did, you'd say, well, I want to see it below 55. Anyway, previous cycles, we had a lot of printing, done money. So we haven't seen QE yet. Now, there's people that talk about, you know, Trump bringing in these tariffs, try and create some sort of like gray swan event in which, you know, he can rapidly push through, you know, a quick drop in interest rates, get the money printers turned back on, and really start to supercharge his economy, or the US economy. Now, I've shown this on previous Cuddle Talks. I'm not going to bring it up now because I haven't prepared it. But the reality of it is, it's not about, you know, bull markets don't occur, or, you know, whether it's in traditional markets or not, because we bring interest rates down. Interest rates have to come down. Yes, historically that's always been the case. But the other catalyst is the money printer being turned on, and both of those things have to happen. So unless you shock the system in doing that, that's a process that can take some time. I mean, at the moment, you know, FOMC interest rate drops are only speculating 2 this year. So if Trump wants to supercharge this and sort of his 4 years to go out in a bang, he is going to have to create a way to get that interest rates down so you can get that money printer turned on. What that is, we'll wait and see. But yes, you do need the money printer. Where else is that liquidity coming from? If we wanted to get to 10 trillion, we need another $6.5 trillion to get into the market. That is not chump change. We're not finding that behind my sofa. This time the Mag 7 took most of the liquidity, and the Russell lags 2017, 2021. Just speaking about the Russell, I've been chatting with Bijan. We're going to try and get, no date confirmed, but Bijan on to talk about the Russell 2K, because there's some really interesting correlations between the Russell 2K, so it's the 2,000 largest companies, rather than the 500 or the 100, and altcoins. So it's certainly something to have a look at. I think today it opened green. I don't know where it is at the moment, but altcoins aren't green. Breadth in the stock market be woeful compared to 2021, 2017. Okay, ETH dominance lower low today. Yep. If you had enough money to move the Bitcoin price and knew how many traders are expecting an alt season, how do you use that to your advantage? I mean, that's what market makers do. So they do have enough money to move the market. So, you know, ultimately, for them, they don't just provide liquidity in, let's get a clean chart open. They don't just provide liquidity for Bitcoin, they provide it for a lot of altcoins. How do you think you can open up such trading sites on the likes of Binance and Bybit and everyone else? You know, it's because market makers provide it. So they have the liquidity behind it, and what they do, again, you know, I don't want to spend ages going through it, is, you know, as the prices, let's move it on so clean, but as price moves up, and then what they're doing is they are taking orders. So they move the price up, Everyone gets excited. They want to go long. But they're taking the shorts. Because remember, if you want to go long, someone has to take the other side of that. Generally, that's not retail because they think, oh, well, it's going up. I want to get on it. So it's the market maker that does. So they're placing their shorts here. Okay. It's not costing them anything and they're not going to get liquidated. So they're in positions here. Then at a time suiting them, they then push the price back down. So on the way down, not only are they getting paid out because all those longs are getting liquidated, but they're also now setting longs as price goes down. Okay. So it's something to really get your head around. But as price is going down, smart money is not selling, it's buying, or it's placing longs, it's building positions. Retail's the one that does whatever price is moving, and they just move around. That's why market makers like volatility. I don't know if that's answering your question or not, but if you had unlimited money, you take advantage of alt season by just it not being rocket to the moon straight away. We have pullbacks. You try and entice traders to think they know what they're doing, and then you just every so often just move the price the other direction. And they get liquidated because as it gets to alt season, the degens arrive. We get, instead of people trading like you and I do with 3 or 5x and having stop losses, we get degens on the 20x's with just a liquidation point to catch themselves. And that generally ends where it goes. So anyway, okay. Even with the Eric Trump announcement, we're going to talk about that in a second. It's one of the questions. I'll prepare my slideshow for that this month. Perfect. Right. Okay. Couple of questions. Harry, if you had spare funds, what would you be doing? How would you deploy them, if at all? If you were going to my head right now, what would I do? I'd go into Bitcoin. But if I was actually being honest, just based on what I'm looking at the moment and what I'm going to show with TA, I'm waiting. I think we're in a bit of a dead cat bounce. I think we've probably got another little move back down to sort of the mid to low 90s. Did that stop me from buying Bitcoin yesterday? No, it didn't. It's sod's law, this. I jest you not. By the time my money cleared in the bank for my business Bitcoin acquisition, price was at about 101,000. So I just bought it. I was like, it doesn't matter. It's a long-term play. And then about 2 hours later, I could have got it for 97,000. It is what it is. But, I'm still buying Bitcoin every month, pretty much at the beginning of the month, regardless. But yeah, potentially I'd wait. But for now, going back to that Bitcoin dominance chart, this seems to be the play. Yes, you may be able to find something else, but there's just a greater risk with it at the moment. You either try and find something new and hope it moves. If you find something that's already moved, I mean, look, we were all singing Virtual's praises not so long ago. It was at $4 and a bit. Now it's at $150. You find something that's shown strength compared to others, like Ondo, and think, well, I'll get in on that. SPX has at least shown that it's had some ability to move. We'll have a look at sort of EMAs and everything else later, but that's sort of where I'd be doing. That, if at all, probably hold on to it. I'd be looking at maybe Bitcoin. I'm assuming spare funds is in you already have a portfolio. Dig Coop, I will come to yours in a second. Alex has put best crypto friendly banks for personal and biz. This is one, I believe you're in the UK. So I truly believe that it doesn't matter what bank you're with. Everyone hates, all of them hate crypto, but it seems that if you speak to anyone in Discord, one person has had a good experience with just about every major bank. So I'm with Barclays. I have never had an issue. There were times where I was moving high 5 figures, never had an issue. I had to take a phone call once and I explained what I did and they were fine. And since then, never really had a problem. I know that people like NatWest, they seem to absolutely hate them. Even the new startup internet banks like Starling and Monzo are pretty bad. But I've seen people with NatWest that have struggled and some that have really found it quite easy. Same with HSBC. Now, I believe Coots, if you can get it, and so, the bank for the rich and famous, they are absolutely fine to move money to crypto. All you have to do is just sign a piece of paper. Someone talked about that about a year ago. But I think you got to have like $1 million in net worth or whatever. So maybe not accountable for everybody. Barclays, as I've tried to read through their terms and conditions, and they don't stop crypto assets. They sometimes restrict the amount you can send. or they will, investigate for a certain amount of time. But I sort of use, so I use Barclays for my personal. I do that via Swissborg, and then Swissborg I convert it into something and then I send it on. That costs me a bit in fees, but it is a way that seems to work. For my business, I actually use Virgin, and I've never had a problem with that, probably because the amount's small, but the business account, it seems to be fine. So unfortunately, it's just, just choke point 2.0 is real, and it's difficult to get money in and out of crypto. So if you do find one that works, just stick with it. And obviously you've got to try and have alternative routes on, because you just don't know when one exchange is just going to stop being accepted. So, I still have a Kraken account, Coinbase now, Mexi, Qcoin, Binance, all of those I have. Don't use them all. My main on-ramp is Swissborg, but if I need an off-ramp or whatever, or at least all the others are active, I'm on there. I'm updating my KYCs just to make sure they don't get closed on me at a time where I need to move it. Okay, sorry, Dick, I can't remember what your real name is, but you said, how would you change your trading when the current US president is setting up these massive plays for insider trading? And I'm ignoring the leading question there, because I think the point you are trying to make is a valid one, regardless of your political persuasion. For anybody here, we have got a sitting US president who 2 days prior to setting up office, or being inaugurated into office, set up his own meme coin, which went to $80 billion, fully diluted market cap, and it's not there anymore. And so you have to sort of question, where do we sit with that when we've got the son of the sitting president shilling Ethereum? You could argue, and tinfoil hat time, that this hot air about tariffs forcing the price down. When the price absolutely dumped on Ethereum, guess who bought over $240 million worth? World Liberty funded, the fund that is backed by the Trumps. So there's definitely some questions that need to be asked. Whether or not it's insider trading or not, I mean, the good thing about blockchain technology is it's all there for us to see. We can see their wallets. So we know that they moved $200 million worth to Coinbase. We'll see if they sell it, but we know they've moved it there. How do you trade? That's the question, isn't it? How do you trade? I don't think there's any difference in how I would trade, because I'm not the person that opens positional plays, leaving them open week to week. I think you run the risk. You go back to maybe not the crypto market in 2016 to 2020 when Donald Trump was president, but when he was president, the traditional markets, there was volatility because the markets react to him. He's a former businessman. He has his very outspoken views on political affairs and business affairs and everything else, and the market react to him like no other president. And so that just creates increased amount of volatility. And whether or not you think his actions are suspicious or what, that volatility will catch you out if you're not paying attention. And let's face it, we can't always pay attention, especially in the UK. We've got to sleep at some stage. So I would just trade how I trade, which I don't trade that often, that, but I would keep my trades light and I would keep them fast. I'd be trading on much lower time frames, or you just trade with him. Whatever he does, you do. The ETH one hasn't played out yet, but we'll see whether or not that's a long-term play there. So that's my view on that. Just this is a prime example. So this is today, Cointelegraph, a whale who previously made $11 million on Trump. He then spent another $33.9 million to buy 766,000 Trump at $44, has ended up sitting on a $21 million loss. So all told, he lost all the profits and over $9 million of his own capital. So Trump token, however it was launched, he hasn't rugged, he hasn't dumped, they can't, they're all locked up. We know that for another 2.5 months they're locked up. But someone's got in on it very aggressively and they've ended up losing 9 million of their own money. So you've just got to be incredibly careful with this kind of stuff, and don't miss more than you're willing to lose, obviously. Easier said than done. I completely appreciate that. Right. It's already 9:10. I want to get onto some TA. So I'm gonna jump straight into BitTensor. So where am I with BitTensor? I am 75% out of BitTensor. That may come as a shock because I only bought back in yesterday. But let's go on the higher time frame. 12-hour we'll do to start off with. A lot of stuff on this chart, so we'll just move that. We've had the downtrend that we've talked about. Still in that downtrend. The trend hasn't broken. So what made me decide to, one, get back in, and then two, to get back out? Well, the reality of it was, I'm gonna have to go on to the 4 because that's what I did it on. So again, this is what we saw in the 4 hour. It's what I said. I wanted a fast V-shaped reversal. That's what I wanted. That's what I needed to convince me that this was a play. I got in at 290, 320, 330. They were the levels. It's a bit higher, isn't it? It's there. Which one do I want to get of this one at the bottom? Excuse me. So they were the levels that I sort of got in at. We watched it go up. And yet we broke the 10, we broke the 20. We got to the 4 hour, the 50 EMA. I go on about that 50 EMA all the ruddy time. And we rejected, we rejected hard from it. We've come back down. So I decided to get out about 375. The idea was I was going to get back in at the time of the market, the digital security announcement. So I got back in. I think I got back in at like 372 or something. So yeah, a wicked trade there for $3 per tau. And then I didn't like what I saw. So it was at 387 or something like that. So I decided to sell 75% of it again because I thought that the Digital Strategic Reserve press conference was actually giving me something meaningful. And I was worried that if they said something like Bitcoin's amazing, we've already started buying it, the market would move and I wouldn't be able to get back in. Whereas if they said nothing, it was a nothing burger and the market rolls away again, as per the original direction, it's easier to get back out. So that's exactly what I did. And that's why I'm now out. I didn't sell anything else of what I bought, just the tau, because the tau hasn't impressed me with strength. For weeks it hasn't. And this now just feels like this is potentially rolling over. And on the 4 hour, it really feels like that. I said on Discord that this vector zone here is where it may look to get back, and there still could be a W formation, but the weakness of that rejection there was enough for me to say there's an opportunity to trade this here, so that's what I'm going to do, and so I have. And I'm not going to get greedy. I want to get back in at a sensible level in which at least I've made something extra from there, and so that's where it's going. But nothing's really changed in the sentiment right now. And to make matters worse, the 12 hour, there's a few hours to go, obviously, but we're in a downtrend, and that's what you see. What are you told? A stonking high test there with a tiny little body right at the bottom. Yeah. Gravestone doji, I think that's what they're called. Rejecting off EMAs. I haven't even put a fib up. That to me is a short. Forget the love that is shown for BitTensor. That for me is a short. So a sidestep, because I'm not perp trading it at the moment. So that's what I've done. I'm not telling anyone else to do that. That's just how I'm just seeing it at the moment in terms of where I want to just try and increase the amount of tau that I've got. Now on the sidestep that I did do back from over here, I bought just a little bit more tau than what I left with, and I was able to buy some Bitcoin, some Ondo, and some SPX. So pretty happy with sort of where that one's gone. I haven't sold the SPX or the Ondo. I think Ondo's actually showed incredible strength through there. But where do I see BitTensor, going from here? If this isn't recovered, if 330, well, let's just say it's the bottom of it, 325 doesn't hold. We've got to think realistically and say 300, and if not 300, a retest of that level there. Now, let's put a fib on, see what we were working with before. I'll do it on the 12 hour, but this was a drop from here. What do you do here? Do you do that? It looks pretty good on the 12 hour, that, in terms of getting out at that rejection point. Remember, this rejection point was the 50 EMA on the 4 hour, now on the 12 hour, but it's pretty clean. it's resting on the 236 at the moment, but with that down test, I'd suggest there's probably some further falling there. So, certainly a retest of that there. This could be moved up a little bit cleaner. Appreciate. So it looks a little bit more like that. Trying to remember where I put the original. Where was the original? I can't remember where the original. Was it from down here? I think it was. That was it. The reason is that 230 level, which is obviously the bottom from the summer. Obviously, it is a number one on the retracement. But that's certainly a level I'd be looking at if the 300 doesn't hold. Now, if it turns around from that W formation, say it bounces off that 340 level, perfect, fantastic. Absolutely happy to move in with that there. And I'll head back in and hopefully we'll see that level of strength. But for now, that's it. I appreciate the talk of detail next week. That's a fundamental issue there. We've no idea how the market's going to react to detail. Are they going to be confused with all of these subnet tokens? Is there going to be a mass exodus of just selling into to sell the D token into TAO and then sell the TAO to profit out? I honestly don't know how it really works at the moment. But from a TA point of view, there's nothing at the moment that's suggesting that this downtrend has turned around. And because of that, I just play what I see. I'm not abandoning the project. It's just where I see it. Ethereum, I mean, you saw Bitcoin 12-hour again here. Bitcoin, nice range. We already talked about the fact this is again just making lower lows and lower lows. This looks like TAO. There's no real strength within it. There's no real strength in the altcoin market. So I'm expecting probably something similar to happen where Bitcoin dominance will continue to go up and most of the altcoin market will bleed. And I think for me, this just visualizes where it's at. You've got the EMAs spreading out now, and we are below them all. 800, 10, 20, 50, 200. All of them on the 12-hour. It's not exactly as if we're on the 1 minute chart here. They're not looking great. And it's not that I want to be bearish. I'm just trying to be realistic with what I personally see. I see Bitcoin making that move down. Bitcoin makes that move down. Everything else is going to follow with it because we haven't broken the back of Bitcoin dominance. CAS, so that must be from a previous one. So we lost that magic level of 10. I mean, we're just battling with it at the moment. I think in reality it was like 10.4, but we are below it. There's no real vectors to take down there. So where this one goes, I actually don't know. That's a long way down to 6. I don't think that's where it's going to end up. Maybe if we're on the lower time frames, like the 4 hour, there might be. Still, there's no vectors. 1 hour. Okay, there's some. No, it's still down at 6. Yeah, we'll just have to see with that. I think a retest of 8. There's vectors. It'll just took a while to load. If the market does break, I'm sort of saying maybe 8.5, the 50% of that vector zone, or all the way down. Virtue, I mean, to me again, I know it's got a long way to go, but there's obviously some sort of support there, wherever you want to draw. It's only on the 4 hour, so I appreciate may not have it, but we're in a downtrend, potentially a rising compression. Could be further falling there. I mean, all the EMA spreading out in a way that's just suggesting that there's a downward movement to go to, but everything's going to be dictated by Bitcoin. That's where I see it. What Bitcoin does is going to really push the others. And Trump, I mean, you just got to laugh at it, haven't you, really? I did this picture just to say, feel sorry for someone. I mean, someone did buy Trump at 77. So it is now 78% drawdown in 2 weeks. So it could be worse, guys, if you're looking at your portfolios. Not looking particularly good. Ondo, one on the daily. So Ondo on the daily, bunching, but at least it's battling that 50 EMA. It lost it. It's come back up today. We'll have to see how this one closes, but it's showing a little bit better strength. The 4 hour kind of similar. It's not lost the EMAs like a lot of the other ones have, and it's been able to recover those ones. So don't think it's out of the woods. I don't think this is going to be an outlier. It just may not fall as hard as some of the other ones. Solana, I think it's a bit like Ethereum at the moment, just showing a bit of weakness. How it's dropping back down, and we're going back to, sorry, I thought we were on the daily here. on the 4 hour. I mean, for me, you know, the obvious level retest of 190 back down here. This acted as a good support. 220, 200 EMA. We've seen it's had some sort of pattern there. So if we are going to keep falling, I think that's probably a likely place. Maybe a good entry position for those that want to take that. I think that's probably where we need to be, just in terms of my portfolio. I'll come to any questions in a moment. So I haven't updated it since the Tau. It was at 35%. That's obviously now, can't do the maths in my head, but 9% off. So 9%, and the rest would be in USDT. So about 30% in USDT. Near's about 28. So I took some profit on Near. I mentioned in the last call. SPX have been adding to. Sold all my render. You'll see. Sold all my Giga, which has gone into the BTC, Link, Ondo. They also have been able to be padded out because of the Tau sidestep. So that's kind of where that sits. I feel fairly comfortable with that portfolio, to be honest. Just in terms of how that's balanced and the sector that it's kind of approaching. It got some AI in there, oracles, real world assets, bit of spare cash, and BTC and a meme. So yeah, and then the business is just BTC. All right, let's have a look at some of the comments. Thanks on the market maker explanation. I'd done a video on market maker explanation. It's about 20 minutes long. I haven't got Vimeo open. I'll find it. I'll put it. I think it's actually in. Anyway, I'll find it for you. But yeah, it's just 20 minutes. It's not mine. I really like, if you really want to buy into it, there's a YouTuber called Trade Travel Chill, Annie. She's really good at explaining it. And then there's another guy called Tino. It's Traders Reality, which he uses the hybrid system, which effectively is a little bit of a market maker. Principles within that. Really good to have a look at that. Never had a problem with Barclays. That's Cliff. No issues with RBS or Revolut. So there we go. There's a few. 9 million is quite a few shirts. Yeah, I mean, that Trump play. Wow. Cal's looking like a Bart Simpson. We'll have a look at that just in a second. And Sui. Okay, let's have a look at Sui. So Sui is another one that's actually shown some strength. I know it's red today, but it was green earlier. So on the daily, I mean, it's lost to 50 EMA, but earlier on today, it was really up here, battling it. Maybe it's not looking as strong now. So look, you know, rise 1, rise 2, rise 3, M formation, drop 1, potentially in drop 2. I literally have not looked at Sui before, but straight away, that's kind of what I saw. There's some nuances to that and sort of, you know, moving back, but it does kind of feel like, if nothing else, I'm going to go back to my yellow. Feels like there's potentially a topping pattern there. And again, you know how before when I was talking about the W's, I wanted the right hand side to be slightly higher. You know, this one here, and I talked about this on Tau and on BTC last week. I didn't mention it this week. So you got this first part of this M formation. You got the second part, you know, but on that attempt and that attempt up, they couldn't get past that high. So we're just getting, you know, lower highs on that, and then it just falls away quite naturally. Well, not naturally, it just falls away there. So just showing general weakness, and that's apparent, you know, again with sort of Tau on the lower time frames. When I was looking at this here, I was like, okay, we've spiked up, can't quite clear it, we've fallen away. And that took longer than I thought. You know, if you remember, I got out really early on that, like 425, 427, went all the way back up to like 480. I could have got out at such a better position, but I didn't, unfortunately. Someone said that Kaz looks like a Bart Simpson. Does it? Oh, big Bart Simpson. Okay. Yeah, it does. I mean, that is a 2-year Bart Simpson. I mean, it almost played out, to be fair. But Sui's, you know, it's well thought of, it's well talked about in terms of an actual project. And yeah, okay, maybe I've just described some level of weakness there. But the 2-day time frame doesn't look too bad. I don't normally use it 2-day, I just accidentally clicked on it. And maybe it gets down to $3 and then we see another bounce there. It's acted that way before. We need something to stimulate the market. Generally, just sort of move everything up. Not till I get back in, mind. But that's just me being a little bit selfish there. We haven't really done any of the Bitcoin dominance. I'm conscious that it's 9:24, so pretty late. I don't think there was anything else I wanted to run through. No, sorry if that was a bit of jumping around today, and there was quite a bit on just that alt season rather than diving into some TA. But I think, that's not what I want. The reality with the TA is, whilst we're in this ranging, and this will be the final point, it's back on the 3-day time frame for Bitcoin. But whilst we're in this TA, what do we expect? If Bitcoin's just going to range sideways, yes, okay, we've shown that altcoins generally bleed more, but they still have up days and down days, or up weeks and down weeks, similar to what Bitcoin's going through. They just don't seem to be recovering the same level of highs. So there's opportunity to be had. You just got to know which area the market's kind of in. And for me, although we have hit the bottom, I don't feel like there's enough momentum right now to say that that's turned around. Maybe it's because the news that actually we've only got a 30-day delay on these tariffs. Maybe it's because Bitcoin's holding its breath, waiting for Trump and his team to actually put some legislation in for Bitcoin reserves. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But we can take advantage of this sort of ranging period, the volatility that comes with it. Even if you're doing spots like me, it sounds super simple, but you buy down here and you sell up here. You don't buy on the way to these levels. Why is that so? You don't buy on the way to levels. You wait for the bounce and then you buy. So you lose a bit. You don't get it here, and you don't sell there. You wait till it's come up and then back down. Well, maybe not down to that level. You get the point. Don't do what I did with the Link one, where I sold it right there and then it decided it was time to move. Because you will not sleep at night about that one. I still lose sleep on it. Anyway, appreciate. That's a much longer session than normal. Thank you all for bearing with me on that one. We've got a trading pub on Thursday, 1 o'clock, usual time. There's a cuddle coming up soon. 22nd of February. For those of you in the UK, I'm sure Simon and the rest will talk about it. We get yourself booked on. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be chatting about top indicators. I'm going to be talking bullish. I know I don't talk about it that often, but I am going to be talking bullish. So please jump on there. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Enjoy the rest of your week. Thanks again for tuning in. And if you got anything, obviously tag me in Discord, send me DMs, whatever you need to do. Enjoy the rest of your evening now. Cheers. Bye.